Ink and Shadow Podcast, Episode 1, Madness of Macbeth. Was it syphilis? In Shakespeare's Macbeth, the title character's descent into paranoia, hallucination, and emotional instability is one of the most striking psychological portraits in early modern drama. Some scholars have noted that these symptoms bear an intriguing resemblance to those associated with tertiary syphilis, a disease that was both widespread and deeply feared in Jacobean London. While there is no evidence that Shakespeare intended Macbeth to literally suffer from syphilis, the similarities are revealing when considered within the cultural context of the early 17th century. Syphilis, often called the Great Pox, was common in Shakespeare's England and widely discussed. The disease progressed in stages. Early symptoms included sores and rashes, but the most terrifying stage was the final one, which could appear years later. Tertiary syphilis could affect the brain and nervous system, producing hallucinations, paranoia, erratic behavior, emotional instability, and cognitive decline. It could also lead to infertility. In a society where lineage and inheritance were of immense importance, such consequences carried both medical and social significance. Jacobean audiences would have been familiar with these symptoms and with the moral anxieties surrounding the disease. Against this backdrop, aspects of Macbeth's behavior begin to look strikingly familiar. His hallucinations, the famous dagger that leads him toward Duncan's chamber, and later the appearance of Banquo's ghost at the banquet, suggest a mind increasingly detached from reality. His emotional state swings between hesitation, violent resolute, and profound paranoia. By the later acts of the play, he becomes obsessed with threats, convinced that enemies surround him on all sides. For an audience living in a world where neurological disease was a visible reality, such a descent into madness would not have seemed implausible or purely symbolic. The theme of childlessness also contributes to this atmosphere. Macbeth speaks bitterly of wearing a fruitless crown and holding a barren scepter. His kingship is presented as fundamentally sterile, lacking the continuity of lineage that defines legitimate rule. While Shakespeare does not attribute this to disease, the association between infertility and sexual illness would not have been unfamiliar to contemporary viewers. Yet it is important to stress that Shakespeare does not depict Macbeth as physically diseased. The tragedy remains driven by ambition, prophecy, and moral choice. The witches do not infect Macbeth with madness, rather they awaken desires already present within him. His visions can be understood as expressions of guilt and psychological collapse, rather than symptoms of literal illness. What Shakespeare appears to have done instead is draw upon the cultural vocabulary of disease. The madness, paranoia, and infertility that shape Macbeth's character echo symptoms that Jacobean audiences would have recognized from real life. In this way, the play gains an unsettling realism. Macbeth's downfall feels disturbingly plausible because it reflects patterns of mental and physical deterioration that were visible within society itself. Thus, while Macbeth almost certainly does not have syphilis, elements of his characterization may have been shaped by contemporary awareness of its effects. Shakespeare uses these familiar fears not as diagnosis, but as atmosphere to deepen the psychological and social resonance of his tragedy. Macbeth's madness, therefore, emerges not from contagion, but from the dangerous convergence of ambition, conscience, and a culture already haunted by the fragility of the human mind.